Hello and welcome to Pushing Back, Ukraine Daily Brief. As the war enters its 812th day, these are the main developments from the past 24 hours. Russia has lost approximately 488,460 troops in Ukraine since the beginning of the war, the General Staff of Ukraine's armed forces reported. The number, which has not been independently verified, includes 1,520 casualties over the past day. According to the released Ukrainian figures, Russia lost 19 tanks, 30 armored combat vehicles, 27 artillery systems, 13 drones, 1 cruise missile, 93 vehicles and 1 piece of special equipment. Denmark announced a new military aid package to Ukraine valued at €750 million. The package includes strengthening for Ukraine's air defense as well as additional contributions for the upcoming F-16 donation and financial contributions for the donation of additional artillery pieces, shells, and anti-tank mines. The update from the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Since the beginning of the enemy's offensive on May 10 on the Kharkiv axis, the Ukrainian Defense Forces have taken decisive actions to significantly reduce the activity of the Russian occupiers. The enemy's plans to penetrate as deep as possible into the urban area of Vovchansk and gain a foothold there have been disrupted. Since the beginning of this day, Ukrainian units continue to perform combat missions within the urban area of Vovchansk, keeping the enemy under fire control. The situation is under control. There were 23 combat engagements. The enemy launched a total of 2 missile and 4 air strikes and using 8 guided bombs, and 564 attacks on positions of Ukrainian troops and various settlements. In its latest intelligence update, the UK's Ministry of Defence reports the Ukrainian economy is showing signs of recovery despite the ongoing war. The International Monetary Fund predicts a 3% growth in GDP for 2024, following a sharp decline in 2022 and a small increase in 2023. Inflation is also falling, with the National Bank of Ukraine revising its forecast for 2024 downwards. The NBU has responded to these improvements by lowering the base interest rate. However, some challenges remain, including potential increases in inflation later this year. In its latest intelligence update, the Institute for the Study of War. The tempo of Russian offensive operations in northern Kharkiv Oblast continues to decrease after Russian forces initially seized areas that Ukrainian officials have now confirmed were less defended. The U.S. Helsinki Commission stated that the U.S. should allow Ukraine to conduct strikes against military targets in Russia's border areas amid an ongoing Russian offensive operation into Kharkiv Oblast from Russia, although U.S. officials continue to express unwillingness to support such strikes. Russian President Vladimir Putin continues to publicly prioritize the further mobilization of the Russian defense industrial base while also attempting to assuage possible domestic fears about the negative effects of increased Russian defense spending. Putin specifically noted that the Russian defense industrial base must increase the quality of Russian weapons. Putin is likely concerned about the economic and diplomatic implications of decreased Russian arms exports. The Kremlin confirmed the appointments of the newly formed Moscow and Leningrad military districts and other military district commanders on May 15. Russian sources speculated that the May 13 detention of Russian Deputy Defense Minister Lieutenant General Yuri Kuznetsov is only the beginning of a wider effort to root out corruption within the Russian Ministry of Defense. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken announced during a joint press conference with Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba on May 15 that the U.S. will provide a $2 billion defense enterprise fund to Ukraine. Ukraine's main military intelligence directorate reportedly struck a Russian fuel depot in Rostov Oblast on the night of May 14 to 15. The Kremlin continues to add European officials to Russia's wanted list as part of Russia's efforts to assert the jurisdiction of Russian federal law over sovereign NATO member states. Ukrainian National Security and Defense Council Secretary Alexander Litvinenko assessed on May 15 that Russian forces will have enough tanks and armored fighting vehicles for the next year and half of fighting in Ukraine at their current operational tempo. Russian forces recently made confirmed advances in northern Kharkiv Oblast, near Siversk, and west of Donetsk city. In Zelensky's nightly video he covered several points. Firstly, he had ongoing reports from military and the Ministry of Defense where the focus on combat zones was in the Kharkiv region. He also said defensive actions against the occupier using artillery, drones, and infantry was taking place. Secondly, there were reports on security and consequences of Russian strikes and attacks in Kherson, Dnipro, Kharkiv, Mykolaiv, and Sumy regions. Lastly, he condemned the appalling attack on Slovakia's Prime Minister Robert Fico. Thanks for following today's updates. Please don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. We'll return tomorrow with the latest news on the ongoing conflict.